Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Pros Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. You can find me on Twitter at DanHarris80. With me today and for the foreseeable future is our newest analyst, Joey P, Joe Pisapia. Find him on Twitter at JoePisapia17. Joe, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. The wonderful tech crew has set me up here. I look so crisp today, unlike yesterday. It was a disaster. So we fixed all those issues. It takes a lot of work to make this face look good. So we put in that work this morning for all of your viewing pleasure watching on the YouTube channel. But I am good. I am ready. It's like mock draft season. I have 3 mock drafts here, and 3 drafts in 2 days, 1 real, 2 mock. So I am ready. I feel like we're in the training session. It's like Rocky 4, where he's training and training. So I think that's what we're getting excited about here.
Yeah, we'll go run up a mountain.
Yeah, well, it's freezing outside. I've got nothing but snow. I'm going to cut down a tree, and I'm going to carry that log up a hill in my neighborhood later this afternoon.
The tech guys tried to, do what they did with you and make me look good, but they mailed it in after like
Clearly.
30 seconds. They're like, we can't fix. Yeah. We're not, plastic surgeons. All right. So here's the deal, guys. If you haven't heard yet, Joe is full-time now with Fantasy Pros. Yay! He is going to be taking over as the host of this podcast. It's going to be amazing. Look, last year was a weird year for the companies and a weird year for baseball. So we didn't really, follow through enough on the baseball podcast. That's not what we're going to be doing this year. Joe and I love baseball. Love it. We're going to be doing the show during the season. Every day we're going to be there for you. It's going to be amazing. Make sure you're subscribed and tune in. But today, as Joe mentioned, it is a mock draft day. We're going to be doing a mock draft with our draft simulator over at fantasypros.com/draftwizard. And to join us, not just me and Joe, but we have another guest. It is Andrew Gould, writer for us here over at Fantasy Pros, one of the most accurate baseball rankers in the entire industry, by the way. Find him at Twitter, at Andrew Gould. Andrew, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Pitchers and catchers reporting. I'm ready to draft.
I didn't even mention it, right? Because the entire country is under a winter storm watch. Today is pitchers and catchers reporting day. Best day. I'm really excited. I am more excited right now for baseball season than I even feel like I usually am coming into a year. I think because of last year, right? Because of the false starts and then it was so weird. Right now, absolutely. I don't know, guys. I'm so ready for this. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Maybe the Mets, because the Mets are going to be... wait, are you a Mets fan, Andrew?
I am, unfortunately.
Oh, good. That is the right answer. I am, unfortunately, is the correct answer for any true Met fan. Yes, I am, unfortunately. Well done, Andrew. Well done.
All 3 of us.
Yeah, man. Losers. Huge losers.
Losers. What a loser. Okay, let's get ready to mock, guys. So here's the deal. If you listened to our mock draft earlier this couple of weeks ago with me and Joe and Steve Gardner, I made a little boo-boo, and that boo-boo was that I made it a 30-second clock. That was a mistake, although, as Joe said, it was like drafting on cocaine or on speed.
Not that I would know.
Not that we would know.
I'm just
ever
saying,
having done that.
I'm brand new here. Please don't get me fired on the second day. I mean, come on.
That's fine.
God, I already signed the handbook and everything.
That's true. I'm basically your boss, so you're fine.
Okay,
look, don't do that, by the way. Stay clean out there. Okay, look, but we are at a minute this time, okay? A minute for the clock. Now, we're going to go a little deeper here. The first one, we had kind of shallow categories. This is going to be kind of a very standard mixed league. 1 catcher, 1 first baseman, second baseman, third baseman, a corner, a middle, 5 outfielders, 2 SP, 2 RP, and 5 P, and 5 bench. So it's very standard draft. We're going to be doing it. I will try to talk everybody through it. Now, Andrew, I want to let you know before we get started, I'm going to be letting our audience know how I feel about every single one of your picks. And it's going to be doing that I'm going to be doing that by referring to you differently depending on how I like your pick. So I may call you Andrew after a pick. I may call you Andy. I may call you Drew. Each one is going to mean something different. One of them is going to mean I really like your pick. One of them is going to mean I hate your pick. One of them is going to mean it's all right. But I'm not going to tell you which one it is. Okay, so I'm just going to have you wondering about that during the draft, just to kind of get in your head. Joe, I'm just going to call you Joe.
Yeah, that's fine. I have one question before we start. If Andrew actually takes a player that you really like and you get mad that you had in your queue at the top of the queue, does he get to write on the bottom of your shoe since you are Woody and he is Andy?
Yes, that's a fair point. Yes, if you're listening on the baseball podcast, Tags nicknamed me Woody the first time we met from Toy Story, and it's because I'm kind of skinny and my arms flail about when I talk, which you should be watching, by the way. You can watch this mock draft on youtube.com/FantasyPros MLB. We have started a Fantasy Pros channel just for our baseball listeners, youtube.com/FantasyPros MLB. So let's talk, though, what we're going to be doing. It's the mock draft, okay? It's with our draft simulator. You know it. You love it. FantasyPros.com/draftwizard. You can do a mock draft in 10 minutes. You can do it against realistic artificial drafters using expert rankings. And here's the deal. No two drafts are the same, by the way. You do 10 drafts, you're going to get picks that are going in different directions because it's artificial intelligence using different rankings and everything like that. So you can try it a million times. And again, 10 minutes. Now, what we're doing right here is I want to draft with my good friend Andrew. I'm contractually obligated to draft with Joe.
Correct.
So we are going to be using the multi-user drafts. Joe, by the way, you're going to hear this referred to as MUDs. That's multi-user draft. I didn't know that until I was with the company for like a year. No big deal. The MUDs. If you want to do one with your buddies, go to FantasyPros.com/draftwizard. Go to the mock draft lobby and then go to private mock drafts, and then you can share the link with your friends. All right, guys, I've given all the settings. I've done it. I'm going to start the draft. It's going to randomize the draft order. I would like to start it. The draft is called Crushing It, by the way, which is just something that I tell people when I want them to feel good about what they're doing. So I say that all the time. Now, I pressed start. I'm waiting for it. It's waiting to go.
To crush it. Well, you can't crush it all at once. You want to ease into crushing it. So.
I would like to start the draft of Crushing It. There we go. Okay, sorry, my bad. I think I accidentally did not crush it on that one. Okay, so we're going. Mock draft starts in 23. So it looks like Andrew.
Oh, number one. Look at this guy.
Joe and I get to go back to back here at 10 and 11. So all right, who's number one for you? I mean, is it going to be Acuna?
This isn't the year really to pick one because you can make the case for maybe like at least 6 guys. So I'm leading towards Acuna just because if anyone in baseball is going to go 40-40, it's him. He's maybe a bit more average downside than Trout or Betts, but yeah, I'm going to go Acuna here.
Okay. Let me tell you something. If you took longer than like 15 seconds to make that pick, because you got to know at this point who your number one is. I agree with you. It's Acuna. Joe, is Acuna number one for you, by the way?
Look, everything Andrew said is correct. He did not go number one last night, actually. I think Mookie Betts went one overall in LABR, which I know we're going to talk about later in the week. But yeah, look, it's certainly understandable. And in a 5 active outfielder league, I'm fine with that. I'm a Juan Soto guy. Everybody knows I'm president of that fan club. But to get all those stolen bases, it certainly makes sense here. I am on the clock, so I'm going to stop talking right now and kind of look around and see what's available. Look, and I'm probably going to be the guy who goes offense here. We saw the pitchers go off the board already in terms of what is available there. But I think that, it's a risky pick here. But because it's a big outfielder league, I'm going to take the risk, and I'm going to take the guy with power and speed. I'm going to see if I can get a bounce back from Christian Yelich. And Steve Gardner picked him yesterday, and if Steve Gardner picked him, that's always a good sign. So I'm going to go with that. Now you're on the clock, my friend. Back to back.
Okay. I will say that Yelich is 9 on my board, so I like that pick. Shane Bieber went. The first round went Ronald Acuna, Mookie Betts, Tatis, Trout, Soto. I think those are usually the top 5 unless somebody wants to jump in with a pitcher. Then DeGrom, then Bieber, Trey Turner, Garrett Cole, and Christian Yelich. If you take Bieber out of that, that's basically my top 9 as well. So for me, look, at this point, I don't have a super huge feeling on who I prefer in terms of whether it's Trevor Story or Jose Ramirez. If you guys are watching, you can see that on YouTube, you can see that I just changed it to my own rankings. I made a cheat sheet with our cheat sheet creator. I do have Trevor Story as my pick. I'm going to go with him at this. I assume he's going to stay in Colorado. I don't know whether or not they're going to eventually deal him or anything like that. But even without Arenado, you know what you're going to get with Trevor Story. Shortstop is deep, but the power and speed combination. Next up at 12 went Jose Ramirez and Freddie Freeman. So now I'm sitting here. I don't love getting out of my first 2 rounds without a starter, but Trevor Bauer is 4th on my board, and I just don't feel super excited right now about Trevor Bauer. Maybe because he spurned our Mets, but look, there's risk. Once you get past the top 3, in my opinion, there is risk. So I'm going to go with a guy who I think you could say there's risk after offseason shoulder surgery and I'm coming off an MVP season and I'm going to change my swing and then have a disaster. But I am going to take Cody Bellinger here. I've got 2 guys who should provide a ton of power, a ton of speed, and Bellinger is multi-position eligible. So that's where I'm starting. Trevor Story, Cody Bellinger, Joe, you're up.
Well, there was quite a run last night into the second round of starting pitching, and I think there's a huge cliff this year. I really do. We actually took DeGrom first overall in that one at 7, but I think that if you don't grab one of these elite starters, it gets real tricky depending on what that run is in the second round. So I'm going to take Yu Darvish here. Yu is my guy. He's been absolutely brilliant since the end of 2019. I feel really good about him. I like the spot here with San Diego. I think they got great defense. I think they're able to really, obviously support him offensively too. So it's a really good situation for him. And he's just been one of the better pitchers in baseball over the last 2 years. So for me, it's Yu Darvish. It's a nice, easy, comfortable pick. And I'm enjoying the start of this team. Yelich and Darvish sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, you throw out that beginning of 2019, that first half, and he's just been basically
just dominant. Yeah,
just dominant for a year and a half. So there was a run on pitchers after that. It went Bauer, Buehler, the next 2 picks. Also Nola and Lucas Giolito have gone. Drew, you're up at the 12th pick of the second round.
Yeah,
what are you looking at?
I was hoping to get Giolito or Buehler here. Didn't happen, so I'm gonna go in all reliable Max Scherzer. I think people are writing him off a bit too soon, and I still think he can be an elite ace for at least one more year. So, especially since all the pitchers were gone.
I got in a little fight with Nick Pollock a couple of weeks ago because he thought I was talking bad about Max Scherzer. I'm not. I love Max Scherzer, but you have to be concerned at this point. I don't think it's a bad pick there, given who it's gone. But I'm a little concerned. Of course, it was a short season, so we write it off. But you've seen kind of the cracks at this point in the armor. I think he's a fine pick there. I don't mean to badmouth it. So you're up again here for another pick. Who are you looking? You going another starter here?
No, I'm looking. My top 2 players on the board are both shortstops, Xander Bogaerts and Bo Bichette. I personally prefer Bogaerts. He's a little safer to me, higher floor, and especially batting average. And I'm gonna take him. I think he's gonna get a good 5-category producer.
What I like about Bogaerts is that the steals came back last year, even in the shortened season. That was my worry with him coming into the year when I thought it was going to be a full season, was that the steals have been just declining down. And if you take those out, he's a fine bat, but, lacks that. But he bumped them back up last year. All right, Joe, we went Nolan Arenado, Whit Merrifield, Bo Bichette, Adalberto, Mondesi, Luis Castillo, Marcelo Ozuna, DJ LeMahieu, and Anthony Rendon. You are up.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's definitely some guys in there. LeMahieu is one that I was hoping would make it to me. Went 2 picks before. Second base is dreadful, as we've talked about before. There's a few other guys that are okay in that sphere. For me, I'm looking at some of the White Sox guys right now. I'm looking at Jose Abreu coming off that fantastic season. I'm looking at Eloy Jimenez. And once again, what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to lean a little bit towards just the concept of the league and understanding where the value is. So I'm going to take the young guy. I'm going to go with Eloy Jimenez because I just don't even think we've seen how good he can be yet. So yeah, I'm going back-to-back outfielders here, but I got Jimenez in the second round of labor. So this is the now third round here. I think it's a great value.
Yeah, so this is where, look, when you get out of the first 2 rounds without a starter and you're drafting late, you kind of put yourself behind the 8 ball, right? Because you kind of have to figure out a way. You can't go too long in today's game without getting a starter, kind of your ace, to back you up. There are a lot of good guys that I have out there. I like Ozzy Albies, of course, because second base is so thin. I like Alex Bregman, who I think people are unfairly writing off after last year, but I am going to go with the starter. And my guy that I like this year is Jack Flaherty. I mean, you take out that one horrific outing, right, at the end of last year, and he's coming off an absolutely dominant season. So the guy at 12, no pitching, all right? The guy at 12 has gone Jose Ramirez, Freddie Freeman, Jose Abreu, and Alex Bregman. So now I sit here and I say, okay. Do I want to go with the back-to-back Stada, or do I want to go sort of somebody like Ozzy Albies or something like that? On the rest of my rankings, you can see my board if you're looking at it right now. On the left is my board right now that I've brought in as of right now. So I have Ozzy Albies, Brandon Woodruff, who I absolutely love. I loved coming in last year. Clayton Kershaw, again, kind of turned back the clock, but you've got the innings concerns, especially like this. I'm going to go with another starter here because I really don't want to leave myself with Jack Flaherty and kind of middling options. And whether Woodruff and Kershaw, this is where I have to, the rubber meets the road in terms of what I want to do. And I'm going to go with Kershaw, okay? I have Woodruff 1 spot higher on my board, but Kershaw, again, maybe the innings won't be there, but the innings might not be there for anybody this year. And Woodruff, again, the Brewers are going to cap their starters at 100 more innings than they pitched last year.
Well,
So
I am so happy you did that. I'm so happy you went with Kershaw because that allows me to take Albies here. Once again, I hate second base. This was my default. Albies went very early in labor. Now, again, that's a 15-team league as opposed to a 12, so there's certainly a little bit of a different vibe there, what's going on. But Albies gives you batting average. He gives you power. He gives you some stolen bases. Pairing him along with Yelich and Eloy Jimenez, I think that's a really good offense with Yu Darvish, a true ace. Hopefully, I'll address pitching here as it comes back to me, and hopefully one or two of those guys that are out there. But as you can see, pitching does fall off a cliff, and I think that if you don't address it early with some sort of plan to grab at least one in 5x5, it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, I really like to grab 2 in the first 4 rounds. That's not a hard and fast rule, and you shouldn't have any. But especially when you're like me, and you've got Darvish, Joe, and you've got Scherzer. Like for me, I kind of felt like I needed the second one.
Well, that's exactly the right pivot. If you're not going to have an elite, you better have 2 guys that are 1As, and I think that's what you did. And usually, I'm also fine with that strategy as well. It just depends on where you're picking, and so much of that really depends on the where you end up in the draft order.
Yep. All right, back to you now, Andrew. You've got Bogarts, Acuna, and Max Scherzer. Who are you looking here at the turn?
Well, speaking of pitching falling off a cliff, Woodruff went, Zav Gallen went, Kenta Maeda went, so I'm thinking now if I don't take a starter here, I might be trouble on the way back.
You got to take one, I would say, of these 2 picks.
I'm looking at Blake Snell and Lance Lynn, both entirely different pitchers. I'm going to take the upside with Snell. Just because it's a mock draft, if it doesn't work out, oh well.
Hey, you can't think of it like
that. You can't do that. That's no
good. Andy, what are you doing?
He's a Cy Young winner before. Maybe he gets let loose a little more in San Diego.
I wonder, by the way, I have conflicted feelings on the move to San Diego in that, it's great. They're going to take the reins off, but also the Rays are like the smartest organization in the world, and maybe they know what they're doing by limiting him, other than in the World Series, of course. Okay, you got another pick here. Who do you got here at the first pick of the 5th round?
I already have a shortstop in Bogarts, but I'm kind of surprised Tim Anderson's still on the board here. I mean, eventually you kind of have to give him credit for the batting average. You can't just keep crying fluke the whole time, so I think that's another 5 category contributor here. So yeah, I'm just gonna take the best player available and then play for need later.
Joe, are you like me in that I like Tim Anderson is a guy who, you're right, Andrew, like you have to buy into it at this point because he just does it every single year. I just can't. Like I refuse to sort of get there and be like, I'm taking this guy. Just a complete ridiculous bias from somebody who is driven by numbers. I'm like, no, I can't do it with Tim Anderson. I don't know about you, Joe.
No, I can't go with Tim Anderson. There's some shortstops actually where I think you have a little bit of leeway there. There's actually some depth there. Even bounce back guys like Marcus Semien, who I think are going to be available later. That playing and hitting at the top of that Blue Jays order could be very, very good. For me right now, looking at the board, once again, a lot of the guys in my queue just got obliterated. So now I'm going to decide if I really want to take a risk here or not. But you know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to go with old reliable, and I do mean old, but very reliable, and I'm going to take another offensive juggernaut that always gets undervalued, and I took him last night, and I'm going to do it again.
Come on.
So Nelson Cruz, 5th round. Boom! Pow! There you go.
Pick.
Let's go.
That's the pick. I mean, when we talk about this eventually, we are going to basically Nelson Cruz is going to go down as the most underrated fantasy player of all time.
He's got the body of a 27-year-old, for God's sakes. I don't care what he's on. I don't just as long as he stays on it, I'm fine. I don't just don't get caught, whatever it is.
All right. So my board looks terrible right now. Like my rankings of who I have left, I'm like, don't want you, don't want you, don't want you, don't want you. This is the ugly part of your draft. So. The top guy on my board, and again, you can see the little percentages. Those are the number of experts who would recommend taking a player at that, at this spot. Doesn't matter to me. I go by the beat.
Be your own expert.
I'm going to go with a guy whose, quality of contact does not justify what his numbers ever are, and they're deadening the ball, and it's terrifying. But I'm going with Kevin Biggio, who's going to have, obviously, we talked about second base.
It's bad.
Is something. It's a sad position. And I mean, he's going to have eligibility, all over the place, at this point. So it's a guy who can fill a lot of holes. And at this point, look, the top guys on my board are the closers. But man, I don't really want to take a closer at this point. None of the offensive options are looking, that great at this point. So I might go a little more pitcher heavy. Look, I'm weak probably at, starter. I think that's fair to say. I mean, Kershaw and Flaherty aren't weak, but, I don't have that real ace. So I'm going to go with another guy, a guy who I think is being underrated, again, by a couple of bad starts. He looked sort of great coming out, and it's Sonny Gray, one of my personal favorites. I think you're going to have the strikeouts with Gray, whether he stays in Cincinnati or not. You know, I'm buying into that last year. A lot of what we saw, especially since he got off to a good start, can be written off. So I'm going with Biggio and Gray. I've now got Flaherty, Kershaw, and Gray at my rotation, and Trevor Story, Cody Bellinger, and Cavan Biggio as my offense. Joe, you're up. You're at Yelich, Darvish, Eloy Jimenez, Ozzy Albies, and Nelson Cruz.
Yeah, well, I really like the offense. I got to address some more pitching here. And I had some outs here. There were 3 guys on my board here. One was Carlos Carrasco that I was looking at who went. Then Steven Strasburg, if I want to take that risk. And the other guy's Corbin Burns. I'm going to go with Burns. I just love the strikeout rate last year. And I understand it was a small sample, but last year was an entire small sample season. So you can't really worry too much. Did the guy look great? He did. You don't have to worry about him being overused last year. I think the Brewers are going to be better than people realize yet again because that's what the Brewers do. So give me him. And actually, it's really interesting that Ryan Mountcastle just went in the 6th round.
Oh, my God. I was about to bring that up at the 11th pick of the 6th round.
Whoa. And I like Ryan Mountcastle, but I think that's a little early on the Ryan Mountcastle.
Are like snowflakes, man. You're never going to get... They're all different. Everyone's going to be different. I will say one thing on Burns, and then I'll get to your pick, Andrew, as you go up for 2, is that I love Burns. I loved him 2 years ago when he gave up homers at an astonishing rate, but he changed his pitch mix last year. He got away from that 4-seam fastball. He threw, more sinkers. He leaned into the natural cut of his ball. I love Burns. There is some risk, but I still think the pick there is absolutely
and the same thing with Strasburg. There's equal, if not more, risk with Strasburg, so I'm going to take the younger guy right now.
I think that's fair. All right, you're up. Drew, are you going Strasburg then? Are you going double nationals here?
No, I'm going JD Martinez because Joe messed me up and took Nelson Cruz. So
well, he wasn't getting back to you, Andy. All right, I was taking him for sure, just so you know.
Yeah, I'll take another slugger instead who has hit 300 with 35 home runs or more, like for 3 years before the short in 2020. And
now, it is worth it before you get to your next pick. I will say that other than Cruz, because somebody took, Yordan Alvarez and you took JD Martinez, in our draft wizard, they are outfield eligible. And sometimes people ask about the eligibility. We take eligibility from a bunch of different sources. I think there's one. It rhymes with Mahu. That is a little lax on the position eligibility. So don't blame us. You can play JD Martinez in outfield for our purposes, but you are stuck at DH with Cruz. Anyway, go ahead.
Speaking of which, I'm going to exploit that eligibility again and take a shortstop who they're giving to me for second base eligibility, and that's Glaber Torres.
Lovely.
Typically, I've never drafted him, but
pick.
Now he's going cheaper. So at this price, I can get behind him for.
I was looking at him. I was looking at him where I was picking for sure. Again, you can write off last year, 3 home runs or whatever he had. I mean, we've seen what he can do. I love it. So it's a great pick. All right, Joe Pisapia, you're coming up. Your 2 starters here are Darvish and Burns, and you've got Cruz, Albies, Christian Yelich, and Eloy Jimenez. That's a great base. What are you doing here?
Well, right now, in terms of the starting pitchers, there's none that are really speaking to me. And I got to tell you, I'm looking at what else is available here in terms of my queue. And it's now down to, okay, now we got to start taking some shots. And it's about where you want to take that shot. And basically, I'm filibustering because I'm trying to figure out exactly what shot I want to take. I think that Nolan Arenado is going to have a really good impact on Paul Goldschmidt, and I just think that's going to take a lot of pressure off him and finally giving him somebody else. And first base also not great this year. So I'm going to take some more power here because you could just never have enough power. That's right now you can never have enough arms and never have enough power.
Yeah. You can never have enough power, but you know what you can have? Too little power, which is what I have at the current moment, given that I've drafted 3 starters and my offensive players are Trevor Story, Cody Bellinger, and Cavan Biggio. Not a dearth of power, but I need some more. And so I'm going to take a guy who, again, I get that his average fell off a cliff last year, but he has the power bat, especially if he's playing in Cincinnati. I'm going to take Eugenio Suarez, who I think is just kind of a guy who's there and is safe, and he could easily approach 40 homers if everything goes right. Now the guy at 12 did take Michael Conforto, who I was also looking at.
Yeah, it was on my queue as well. Yeah,
he was definitely there as a guy who I like. But again, I do think at this point I need to think a little more about just the pure power. So I'm going to go with another guy who, well, actually I guess I gotta This is fascinating now. Now I'm stuck.
I'm
like, I'm going to go with this guy. I'm torn here between two guys, Teoscar Hernandez, who I like, or Nick Castellanos, who I love, and who I think kind of, everybody was excited about Castellanos last year, but other than the fact that his batting average was bad, he was totally fine, and his expected batting average was fine as well. So you know what? I'm going to go back-to-back Reds here. I'm going with Castellanos. I don't have, too much in the outfield right now, assuming that I play Biggio at second, which I'm sure I will. So I'm going to draft Nick Castellanos. I tried to draft. Sorry, I must have. There we go. All right, there we go. Castellanos.
There it goes.
So back to back. There, whatever, man. You tried talking the whole time. Okay, so now we're going. To Joe Pisapia. Back to you, Joe. I will give it you at Paul Goldschmidt, Ozzy Albies, Christian Yelich, Eloy Jimenez, Nelson Cruz for your offense. That's a great offense. And Yu Darvish and Corbin Burns as your starters. A lot of strikeouts right there. Where are you going now?
Well, I'm going to go with Zach Greinke. Boring, old, quality start Zach Greinke. And, the ERA was a little high last year, but you look at the walks and how he limits that, and I think that ERA is going to go back down to the threes where it usually lives. And a guy that I feel very good about going out there and making 30 starts. And that is the key this year, too. When people are looking at pitching and trying to address pitching, last year there weren't a lot of guys who were able to build up stamina. So I think the guys that have been there, done that before, you should really pay close attention to them and value them just a little bit more than you might normally. So Zach Greinke might be a guy that kind of gets suppressed in drafts. He did last night, too. And I think that looking at this draft right now, it's a really good value to get him in the 8th round because we all know as a third starter, that's a pretty good guy you can really rely on and you don't have too many questions about.
Yeah, I think that's why I might have gone with Lance Lynn over Blake Snell when you were debating that.
Me too. I'm still a Lynn over Snell guy. No, two reasons. Number one, really body type. Because I love that he's like just a big guy. He looks like he's in a softball league, and I just something really appealing to me about that.
Yeah, but he led the league in innings last year.
He's just a horse, man. The guy's just a workhorse, and I love that about him.
All right, we're talking all through while Andrew.
Well, I was giving Andrew time to think, so go ahead.
Go ahead, Andrew. What do you got?
All right.
6 seconds.
Yeah, so there's a clear theme with my team so far. I'm just taking the 2020 Mulligans on my offense. Anthony Rizzo. Anthony Rizzo had a low average last year in a small sample, and I'm just not buying it. There was nothing to suggest that was, a legitimate decline. So I think that's going to bounce right back with pretty good power right in the middle of the batting order. It's a good first base pick here. And yeah, since I did take Snell and I passed on Lynn, I want that workhorse now. And my starting pitcher queue kind of got obliterated. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm looking at a former Met as my top pitcher left.
No, he's gonna do it.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah,
can't go wrong with former Mets.
Yeah,
former.
It was a weird year last year.
Not current.
The strikeouts went down, and I have no clue why. There was nothing really that changed that supported that drop in strikeouts. So I think that's going to bounce right back with a lot of innings. So good number 3 starter for me.
Would you like to announce the person's name in case anybody's actually listening to this? I don't know if I heard it.
Oh, if I didn't, I thought I said Zach Wheeler.
Oh, you may have. I may have just missed it. I didn't hear. I was watching the draft board on youtube.com/FantasyPros MLB. Go there right now to look at the draft board. But yeah, that is. I like the pick as well. I think that's fine. Finding out what to make of last year is crazy. For Greinke, by the way, Joe, we didn't talk about it because we talked a lot. I don't love Greinke, just generally speaking, because of the declining strikeout rates, just generally speaking. But I think for your team, especially because your 2 pitchers coming in are Darvish and Burns, 2 guys who are going to give you a ton of strikeouts, certainly makes sense as somebody to round out your rotation. But you are up again, Joe. Who are you looking at here in round 9?
Well, in round 9, I'm going to start addressing the closer situation here, because in this particular format, as we were talking earlier in terms of what you have to have and don't have to have, you do have the 2 RP spots, which are mandatory. And that's something people don't, if you're playing in just open pitcher slots, that's different. But when you have mandatory, even in a 12-team league, you have to do the math. That means 24 closers are already going to be active, not to mention the other guys that people are going to want to speculate and try to, go above in 5x5 with saves. So addressing closer at some point, I think Karinchak is a really good option there that I was able to pull off.
Yeah, I like.
And I see what you did right after me.
I was eyeing the exact same thing. I agree. I think at this point you have to have at least one guy that has the job, that is not in danger necessarily of losing the job there. So I'm up again, Max Muncy and Alec Beaumont. I was looking at Muncy for sure. That was somebody I was going to look at. My team right now, if I can get there, and this is where we're going to do the fun managing the. All right, Cody Bellinger, Kevin Biggio, Trevor Story, Eugenio Suarez, Nick Castellanos, Clayton Kershaw, Jack Flaherty, Raisel Iglesias, and Sonny Gray. So I am up right now. I really could go for an outfielder here. There's some pitchers I like as I'm looking at my board. I am going to go with one of the two. I'm going to go with, how many Reds can I draft at this point? I'm going to go with Mike Moustakas. I was looking at Matt Chapman. I have Eugenio Suarez, obviously, at third. And Chapman is coming off the hip surgery from his torn labrum in his hip. Makes me a little worried about that. Moustakas is just a guy who's completely undervalued every single year. He's eligible in our database at 3 different positions, first, second, and third. So it gives me a little bit of flexibility there. So I'll go with Moustakas. Joe, you're back on the board. Who are you going with?
Well, look, this guy got off to a bad start to the season, which was a stop and start, and I don't think it was good for him physically. However, when it got into the playoffs, this guy was about as good as it gets, and I love the fact that he's over in Atlanta now. So I'm going to go with another old man in that rotation, the proven guys, Charlie Morton, who still had a 4-to-1 K walk ratio. So give me the 4-to-1 K walk guys. Give me a go pitching in Atlanta in the National League. I think I'll take that, and I like this rotation because now I've got some pretty good depth here between you, Darvish, Burns, Morton, and Greinke. I've got guys that I really feel good about for the most part, with upside with Burns, of course.
I love Morton, and I'm writing an article right now, Draft Arbitrage, that'll probably be published tomorrow, which is basically talking about guys you can get way later in ADP who have almost identical projections to players who are going well above them, and that's Steven Strasburg and Charlie Morton. And again, people want to write off, people look for a reason to write off Charlie Morton because he's old, right? This is what they want to do. No, he dealt with the shoulder injury. His velocity was way down earlier. It came all the way back up at the end of the season and into the playoffs where he had a 2.70 ERA. Like, in Atlanta, give me that all day long, and I would have taken him there had I not felt like I needed to devote a little more to my offense. All right, Drew, you are up. What are you looking at here at the 12th pick of the 10th round?
I am looking at a closer because if I don't take one here, I'm probably never going to get a good one I can rely on, and I want at least one. So there was Kenley Jansen and Brand Hand were there. They're both old, and there's enough warning flags there that I went with Ryan Presley.
Yep.
The only issue there is if the Astros happen to get someone else, but I think Presley's the guy there, and I think it's a pretty reliable one. And with my second,
and I don't think we know what Hand's going to be necessarily. I mean, I assume he'll get the most of the saves, but he's the only reliable lefty in that pen, right? So he's not going to be in the ninth inning exclusively.
And his velocity decline scares me a bit. So with my
I think Presley's a good pick there. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of outfielders I'm looking at top of my board. I could go power, but I'm gonna instead go with another power speed combo with Tommy Pham. There's definitely a weird off season for him, to say the least. But
yeah, you
2020
can say
candidate
he was stabbed apparently in an altercation, which is
fine,
but
that's a normal off season for most people. Right?
Who among us has not had something like that? Yeah, and he had a weird year, of course, because he broke the hamate bone, so he didn't do much. But prior to that, he was basically a 25-25 guy. And he's only 33, so I don't think he's like ready to fall off a cliff. I like that pick there a lot, actually, in a loaded San Diego offense. Yeah, all right, Joe, go ahead.
Well, it's time to start taking some shots, and this guy's got some pop and some speed, and I need some guys in the middle infield here, stat. So I'm going to roll the dice on Marcus Semien there. I just really like him hitting in that Toronto lineup, and I think that, again, kind of the needs of the team / where we are in the draft once we get into the double-digit rounds here, that I think it allows you to start taking some shots on guys.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm in a weird spot because I have my board is all pitchers. If you're looking, again, I'm using a cheat sheet. We have a cheat sheet creator that you can pull in rankings from various experts in our database. You can pull in your own rankings. You can do whatever you want. You can bring them into our drafts. I'm going to take I could feel like maybe I haven't taken a pitcher in several rounds at this point. We know that my staff wasn't that strong to start. So I'm going to take a guy who, I think the Marlins have a lot of interesting young guys. I think you can get away with Sixto Sanchez or Sandy Alcantara. I'm going to go with Pablo Lopez, who's one of the highest guys remaining on my board. I was thinking about him versus maybe Julio Urias, but again, we want to talk about innings concerns. We've certainly got them there. So I'm going to go with Lopez. After that goes, also, by the way, you can see on the bottom, that's a slight reach. There was an 89% chance that he was going to be available for me on my next pick. I don't care, pick predictor. By the way, that you can look at that. There's pick predictor here. You can look at that there, and it'll tell you sort of the percent chance.
Don't tell me how to live, pick predictor.
Don't tell me. I'm going to do whatever I want, man. I'm going to do whatever I want. Leave me alone. Anyway, sorry. That is great. Okay, so now I'm looking, and I'm at this unfortunate, horrible part where I'm like, man, I don't really love anybody, and I really kind of could be looking for an outfielder at this point because my outfield is pretty barren as we're going. So I'm going to probably reach a tiny bit for the outfield, and I'm going to go with Kyle Lewis, who's coming off a great rookie season. Probably not a guy who, if I had addressed my my outfield earlier than this, I only have one outfielder, I probably would not have been reaching on. Yes, I would have waited another round, but I'm going to reach. I didn't get the reach pick yelling at me.
It's funny.
FantasyPros.
5 active. This is something that people always forget, Dan. And this is like Fantasy Black Book stuff 101, which is understanding, not only the format but also what the active slots are. We talked about the RP slots, right? Well, when you have 5 active outfielders in a 12-team league plus a utility spot, outfield is actually the scarce position because by the end of it, you start working in guys who are, guys who are in platoons, guys who don't play every day, guys who are risks and whatnot. So pitching and ironically outfield is, usually typically where I like to live. And even last night in labor, DeGrom, Eloy Jimenez, Kyle Tucker, those are the first 3 picks that we made. So, I mean, and you know what? We were better off for it because later on there were some guys, we got some value in outfield later. But if you don't have a plan for it, it can get away from you.
Yeah, no, I have obviously some guys who I can move around. I could move Biggio, but certainly don't want to move Biggio off second base if I can help it. Right. I can move Bellinger, of course. So I have some options at this point, which is great to have, by the way, when especially when you are in the middle of a draft, as you can see where you can address your weaknesses. Joe, I'll get to your pick when we come back to, but I want to go to Andrew now because I know his clock is running down. So Andrew, go ahead. What do you got? What are you looking at here in round 12?
I have the opposite problem as Dan. Is my cheat sheet is loaded with hitters on top, but there's one pitcher that stands out who's really started to break out at the end of last year, and that's Joe Musgrove. I've been a fan for years. I think this could finally be the year, and I'm saying that for the 5th straight year, but this time it's right.
I like that pick, Andrew. I really do.
I was thinking about taking him instead of Lopez, but I keep coming back to Mean Girls to the extent anybody likes Mean Girls, which is like, stop trying to make Joe Musgrove a thing. He's never going to be a thing because he should
never going to be a thing.
Every year at the end of the year, you're like, look at that velocity spike. I love it. This is incredible. This is going to be the breakout. And then it's like, oh, no, not really. Now, obviously, they traded for him in San Diego, so you feel better about him. But, it's a good pick there. I almost picked him where I was. But, I keep sort of – there's something like the Tim Anderson part of it where I'm like, oh, I don't know. All right, Andy, what do you got next for your next pick?
And I almost took him the last time we went around. I went with the power speed combo instead, but now I'm just going to go pure power with Jorge Soler. Again, not really. I'm just going to give him a mulligan for last year and see if that elite power comes back.
Yeah, I was looking at him too, for the power. Another guy who I have sort of an unconscious bias against, for really no reason. So, Joe, your last pick, you went with Kirby Yates, who I like as the pick because I do think he's going to be a closer. But interesting that you have now taken 2 closers in the first 12 rounds at this point. That strikes me as a little unusual at this point. I feel like most people get the one and then they kind of wait until they go for
look, Kirby Yates to me is that one guy that you can actually look at and say he actually moves the needle in terms of potential strikeouts and whip and all the secondaries. That's the last guy. And it is, again, is a bit of a risk, but a risk that I'm willing to take. And I'm going to probably take another one here too because I want to solidify some stolen bases. And I know last year was bad, but he's 24 years old still. At one point, he was higher than Soto in terms of where people graded prospects in the national system. So I'm going to go and I'm going to try one more time with Victor Robles. So, kind of like Musgrove for Andrew, I'm going to try to make Victor Robles happen. But at least I don't worry too much about the playing time. I think he's going to be fine there. I just think, this is a thing where young kids struggle sometimes, and this is his opportunity to bounce back and get him at a value. And if he has a great season, if he has a 25-30 season, all of a sudden you're never going to get him anywhere near the 13th round ever again.
Right. Andrew, what do you think of that one for Joe?
For Robles, I like it. I mean, even the 2019 season that people were a little concerned about because of the StatCast data was a great 5x5 roto season. So, and he's still in his young 20s. I think there's a lot of upside there with that pick, and maybe not as much downside as people believe.
All right, that was really me just trying to stall for as much time as possible as I can look for my own pick. All right, so I'm still kind of looking at outfield here. I'm going to take a guy who, this is going to be, I just can't quit you. And it's Joey Gallo. I understand that the park is not nearly the same as it used to be. And I understand that last year was kind of a disaster. But I think you kind of throw out what you saw from him in 2019 where he smashed lefties. And you kind of throw out what you saw from him last year where he couldn't buy a hit off a lefty. And you take what you saw every other year, which is a guy who's going to bat in the low 200s and probably hit 40 home runs. It doesn't really matter where they're coming from. So I'm going to go with him there. Next, I'm going to go with one of my favorite bounce back pitcher candidates. And I understand that last year really didn't go all that well. But again, it started off fine. Then he was dealing with a back injury. Then he was terrible. Then he had a good final start. I would like him to throw fewer sinkers. I would like him to go back to throwing more splitters. I don't worry too much about the PED suspension that he had the year prior, and I'm going to go with Frankie Montas, a guy who
right off the top of my queue there.
He's going to be probably one of my highest rostered players this year because I just think you can largely throw out last year.
Yeah, great minds think alike. But it sounds like
we all agree.
Yeah. Hey, look, he did. Yes, well, look, we drafted him in labor last night, and I think he was our 4th starter. We drafted him as, so I think that's a great value there. For me, I'm going to take last year and throw it away, and I'm going to read you some stats. How you like this? 35 bombs, 97 RBIs, 106 runs scored, 291 batting average in 2019. Didn't play at all last year.
Terrible steal. Terrible stats.
Right?
I hate them. I don't want them.
Yeah, well, it's good because you're not going to have them. I am. They're going to be on my team, and I'm going to take Trey Mancini here. Again, guy gives me first base eligibility here in this. Possibly outfield too. He's going to play first base. I think eventually in April he'll probably get eligibility there as time goes on. But we took him last night in labor too. Look, when you get to the 14th, 15th round, you're looking for upside. My God, I mean, there's your upside right now. All the scans are good. He seems healthy. He's down there in spring training already. I mean, what an incredible! If he starts to hit right now in spring training in these first few games, that ADP is going to skyrocket into the top 8 rounds.
Yeah. Absolutely agree with that. Again, missed it with cancer, but he was everybody was very excited about it because, it wasn't just that his numbers were great in 2019. It looked legitimate. The underlying metric backed it up.
Everything was good. And the year before, he had a lot of good things trending in the right direction.
All right, Andy, what do you got?
All right, so he's not Nelson Cruz, but he might be the infield version, and that's Justin Turner. Old, reliable, health's the only issue, but when he's healthy, he's a stud. So that's my third baseman right there.
Yeah, I like that pick as well. Back with the Dodgers, of course. So he does it every single year. I didn't realize, by the way, how long he's been with the Dodgers. He's the longest tenured position player on the Dodgers, I believe, now at this point. Nuts. But anyway, go ahead. Another former Met. So there we go. Go ahead. What do you got now?
Yes. And I'm gonna take another pitcher another breakout candidate. Strikeouts went up last year a lot. Really low contact induced. His expected batting average was under 200, I think. That's Tyler Mahle of the Reds.
Another guy we took last night. Love it. Well done.
Love it. Yeah. No, that's great. His stuff is, as long as he's in that rotation, I think he will provide value. So I love that pick there as well. Oh, okay, we're all in agreement. All right, everybody draft Frankie Montas and Tyler Mahle late, and you'll be fine. That's how you win your leagues this year. All right, Joe, what do you got here? We're in round 15. Let's go.
Oh, goodness gracious. Look, I'm going to continue the pitching run here. One of my favorite guys. I know the ERA was a little high, but I watched a lot of this guy pitch last year. I watched a lot of his starts, and he used him a lot in DFS, and I think that the Indians just do a tremendous job of cultivating young pitchers, so Aaron Sivali's next up for me on that rotation.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to kind of know what I want to do with Sivali and Plesac, and I have trouble with guys who I probably never gave a second thought to before last year.
Right.
It's hard for me to really, know exactly what I want to do with that, but I think I know what I want to do with this one, which is make my team crazy. I was thinking about drafting Matt Olson earlier with one of my picks because I wanted power, and instead I said, why draft Matt Olson there when I can wait 70 picks and draft his doppelganger, who is Miguel Sano. And if you're not catching on right now, I'm basically punting batting average at this point. Also, a 95% chance that Miguel Sano would have been there. I don't care, Draft Wizard. I have faith in myself, which what I want to do. Okay, so that's where I am there as I'm looking for it. And man, it's bare at this point when I'm looking at oh great, who am I drafting here?
That's nothing. You've just seen the 20th round last night.
Yeah.
Talk about
we're getting there, and we'll move a little faster.
Yeah, but that was a 15-team league.
All right, you know what? Stop your whining. I'm gonna take another reliable starter here, a guy who I talked about with Alex Fast. We're both high, even though he is a Met, and it's Marcus Stroman. I think there's going to be an improved defense here with the Mets, depending on what happens with J.D. Davis at third, but obviously you add Francisco Lindor. He's adding some pitches. He's got the year off, so I'm willing to go with him, and to back me up as my sixth starter at this point, I'm totally fine with that. All right, Joe, what do you got?
Sometimes a change of scenery is all you need. And I'm going to roll the dice here with Andrew Benintendi. A player that I think Kansas City has done a really good job this offseason, making some good low-key moves, getting guys like Carlos Santana in there. If they can get Soler right, Whit Merrifield's always a good player. I think Dozier can bounce back from a little bit of a down short year. And I just think that Benintendi's still so young. Was he like still just like 26, 27 years old even? So that ability to say, okay, well, there's a guy, maybe you can go 15-15, just, like, let's hope something like that. If he hits 260 and goes 15-15, that'd be fantastic. And I just think there's going to be a lot less pressure on him in Boston. I think he's going to respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was, a superstar in the making coming out, and then has just completely fallen off a cliff. So yeah, change of scenery. It's by the way, sneaky good lineup with the Royals suddenly.
Very sneaky good. You're going to see a lot of us talking about them this year in DFS because they're going to be very cheap. You're going to be a lot of min-salary guys. Going to be very useful.
Yep. All right, Andrew, you're up. What do you got?
All right, I think I'm going to take another former Met. Honestly, I don't have much nice to say about him except he's the closer, I think, and Rafael Montero doesn't have much competition for now, so I'll just take him as a second closer. Hope to get some early saves at least.
You guys remember that time that we called up Rafael Montero and Jacob deGrom, and deGrom was like the afterthought, and Montero was like the big thing, and now deGrom's the greatest pitcher of all time.
Why you gotta do these things? I don't understand why you do these things.
Because I'm a masochist. I don't know. All right, go ahead, Andrew. You got another pick coming. Go ahead.
All right. Let's see here. You know what? I'm gonna go with the Draft Wizards' advice and take their top lift, even though I already have a lot of mashers in my outfield. But Kyle Schwarber had an amazing 2019.
Yeah.
And then he was bad for a month or two in 2020. But that's the deal with him. He's gonna stink for a long. He's gonna stink at times.
That's just
and then
his
he's
deal,
gonna get
man.
He's gonna get red hot like he did in the summer of 2019.
Well, take him. You got 5 seconds.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're gonna get 35 homers. So.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No. I mean, I was looking at him as well as I looked to fill my outfield. All right, Joe. It looks like you have no catcher. I can't believe you don't have a catcher. You have no third baseman.
Can't believe I don't have a catcher. Have you met me in 2 catcher leagues? I don't have a catcher. I don't care. I don't care. I don't.
No third baseman though. No third baseman yet.
It's all right. So
I'm not criticizing. I'm pointing out to our listeners.
Can't have everything right now. I want good.
Yep.
So I'm gonna tell a fun big time story. Ready? So last year on the radio, I got to interview Lorenzo Cain, and it was actually about fantasy football. Actually, he came on to talk football with us, ironically. But I asked him, I said, coming off of your 2019 season, the stolen bases you had were down. I said, stolen bases, people don't seem to, value them as much in baseball. But he's like, no, I do, and I still think it's an important part of my game. He said, I was really disappointed in my 18, and you know what? Hitting at the top of that Brewers order. And I think he's going to bounce back. He took the whole year off because of COVID, and I think he comes back in there, top of that order, probably can steal 20 bags, hit for a decent, 280 batting average or something like that. Helps me in those 2 spots. Limited power, but still, I think a pretty good selection here in the 17th round as my last outfielder.
Yeah, no, that's not bad at all. I, like you, Andrew, I'm going to go with the recommended player. And look, if there's something I like to do, it's draft old, boring guys who you're not excited about whatsoever, mainly because I'm an old, boring guy. And I'm going to draft Andrew Mccutchen, who still should be a fine source of runs and everything like that. Now I'm up next, and I'm looking now at the suggestions. Again, you can look at that. The suggestions tab will tell you what sort of experts would necessarily recommend that you do. And it's Drew Pomeranz. I'm just not 100% sold. I think he's going to get the majority of the saves, but I'm now like a little worried about it. I get that I don't have a quote-unquote second closer or anything like that, but I'm not all that worried about it. So I'm going to look, and I'm going to address my middle infield spot right now with a guy that people are kind of writing off. I really don't know why, but Jorge Polanco is a guy who kind of has produced overall for several years going in. He's not being talked about much right now, but, still with a strong team, I like him to fill my middle infield spot. So let's go to you, Joe. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I love Polanco, and moving over second base.
Nobody talks about him at all.
No.
Nobody talks.
You know what's funny? You mentioned the catcher thing. I haven't even clicked on catcher as a position to look. I don't even care.
Yeah,
I just don't care at all. This next guy I'm going to take actually is exactly where I wanted to end up. He's got the job. They didn't bring anybody else to compete this year. He tore up AAA a couple of years ago, tore up the major leagues when he first came in, had the adjustment period, adjusted back a little bit. I think he's good for 20 and 80 at minimum with a 250 BA. So give me Austin Riley. I think that's a really good spot there at third base for him.
Yeah, I was looking at him because he is outfield eligible, and all I care about is outfield right now at this point. But I agree, he made adjustments, man.
Yep.
I mean, he cut down on the strikeouts.
He did.
Right?
He gave up some of the power for contact, which I'm fine with. Like he'll still hit 20 home runs with the upside for 25 or more. But yeah, I think there's definitely some life there.
All right, Drew, you're up. What do you got?
All right. I know Joe doesn't care about catchers, but I think I'm gonna game the system here a little bit because
Boo. Go ahead.
If you're playing in a league that rhymes with Mahu, you're gonna be able to get starting in third base and shortstop at catcher, even though he didn't play a single game at catcher last year, and he's gonna give you a pretty solid average for it and a few stolen bases. That's Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
Yeah. Took him last night too,
fine.
baby. I love that pick.
I mean,
love that.
If you can
Was
get
he
him
eligible
as
a catcher for you, Joe?
No, he is not because he's not catcher eligible in labor. So he is our middle infielder, actually. And
but
again,
that's what I'm saying.
good batting average,
middle infield,
good batting average, some
start him
cheap
at catcher,
steals. Yeah, I mean he's not a sexy player, but not every pick's gonna be sexy,
All right, round 19. Let's go. This is all ugly now. It's the all ugly picks at this point. So just go for it. What do you got?
I'm just realizing I was sniped on John Means. I was planning on making him my pick, but he went a little before me.
Don't tilt. You can
in.
draft another catcher and really put Joe on tilt right now.
No,
Let's just all draft catchers nonstop.
There's only 12 catchers in this league. I could find 12 catchers I can live every day. That's fine.
Unless people start drafting backup catchers like any sane fantasy manager would. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Drew. What do you got?
Going Jose Urquidy. I'm just gonna another 2020 mulligan pick. Pretty interesting command numbers there. I think it could at least be an interesting back end starter.
And in case you're wondering, people, what we're looking at right now, the picks after that were Gavin Lux, Christian Javier, James Paxton, Archie Bradley, Jesse Winker, J.D. Davis, Richard Rodriguez, and Victor Reyes. We are not in the, crushing it. The draft is no longer crushing it, okay? This is the point where you just got to find your guys. All right, Joe, who's your guy?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You got to find a guy right now. Right now, we're just looking at just the guys. I feel like that's where we're at. So I'm going to go with the top lift here. Shortstop, got some power. Again, can't have enough power, so give me Paul DeYoung over there at shortstop. I think that's a great value in the 19th round for my middle infielder. I'll take 20 free home runs, please. Yeah, it's free square. I'll do it.
I like it. For me, my suggestion from the experts is David Fletcher, but I am not going to do that because I'm going to do whatever I want.
I'll do what I want. Don't tell me how to live.
I'll do what I want.
Wizard.
No, I'm not kidding. You can yell at me, draft wizard. It's fine. Look, I think the suggestions are great, but obviously we've done enough of this to kind of feel like we know what we want to do, except I don't right now because I'm just talking nonstop and in a way to try to buy some time, but my time is out, and so I'm going to, unfortunately, because we've just been talking about catchers, even though 1%. Now I'm trying to find somebody to go. This is what is happening when you're hosting a podcast.
It's very difficult to do what Dan is doing. I just want to put that out.
All right, you know what? Whatever. I'm just drafting Mitch Garver, who I realize is not an exciting pick at this point, and. But whatever. I know 100% chance that Mitch Garver would have been back to me. It's fine. Don't worry about it. You can
100% Mitch Garver. That's what we got.
It's fine. I'm gonna get it. Boy, my draft grade. I hope they don't yell at me too much at this point for what we're looking at this point. Are you ready for another guy who they're gonna be like, why are you drafting this guy? But in the end, it's 15 picks between when sort of. More than that, actually, for when I would go again. So I'm going to draft a guy who I'm trying to draft. If you feel confident in your strikeouts, it's a guy who I think is undervalued all the time, and it's Ryan Yarbrough. I get the way...
He was my next pick. I had one or two guys out there. It's a good one.
Very good. So I'm not worried now about Draft Wizard telling me that I reached a little bit. Which, by the way, it's good to know that. It's good to, have a feeling of when people are going to be picked. But especially when you're this late, just get your guys at this point. Get who you want to get. Yeah. All right, Joe, what do you got now for round, whatever round we're in
stay consistent here in round 20. I'm going to take another pitcher who I had two pitchers on the board. You took the one that I wanted the most, so I'll have to settle for another guy on a team that we already talked about. The Royals are going to be more competitive. They got some good young starting pitching coming, so Brady Singer for me as another starter because you can't have enough starting pitching. Say it with me, boys and girls. You just can't. So that will almost do it for me with pitchers. I got one more pitcher slot. That gives me Darvish. That gives me Greinke, Morton, Corbin Burns, Sivali, and Singer, which is a rotation that I like. I feel pretty good about.
It is a strong rotation for sure. You're up, Andrew, and your rotation is Max Scherzer, Blake Snell, Zach Wheeler, Joe Musgrove, Tyler Mahle, Jose Urquidy, Ryan Presley, and Rafael Montero. What are you looking at here?
I think I'm going to look at hitting here because I still have my corner infield and utility spots blank. Yep. I don't know if this is a reach or a bargain, but he signed with the Rockies, and he might play and hit 35 homers in Coors Field, so I'm going to take CJ Cron as my corner guy.
Very nice. Very nice.
I don't think there are reaches in the 20th round, just to be clear. Especially not at the very end. I think you're fine. And that is something
reach
to hammer
alert.
Well, look, okay, my whole draft has been a reach alert. Dan Harris don't care. Dan Harris is fine. Okay, I'm going to start.
Oh, no. Are we talking about ourselves in the third person here today?
That's how I have to justify it.
Dan Harris knows what Dan Harris wants to do, and Dan Harris does it.
That is a fun fact that there is somebody who works at our company named Jimmy, and Joe and I have a running joke.
Well, Jimmy knows how to sell.
Yes, we're big fans. All right, you're up. You got another pick now after Chrome. What do you got?
So I typically find myself taking the board veterans over prospects, and I'm going to take a rookie here. The Twins must really like Alex Kirilloff if they're going to have him debut in the playoffs and then dump Eddie Rosario just to get room for him. So I think he's going to play very soon, if not on opening day, and top prospect, a really interesting bat. I'm going to take him as my utility.
Can't go wrong in the 21st round. All right, Joe, you were looking at no catcher, of course. Paul Goldschmidt, Ozzie Albies, Marcus Semien. Oh, I must have even missed when you made that pick. My bad. Austin Riley, Trey Mancini, Paul DeYoung, Christian Yelich, Eloy Jimenez, Victor
Sometimes
Robles.
I make picks in between when no one's looking. I like to do that.
Andrew Benintendi, Lorenzo Cain. Always a bargain. Nelson Cruz, and your staff, as you mentioned, Darvish, Burns, Reinke, Morton, Sivali, Brady Singer with Karinchak and Yates.
Yeah. By the way, Kirby Yates, not Kyle Yates. I just wanted to be
Kyle Yates,
specific
our
here.
wonderful football.
Yeah, not the same pick there. I mean,
That's
Kyle's
fine.
a good value here in the 21st, but I'm a little worried about. I'm a little worried
Yes.
about his arm. All right, I'm gonna go with the guy last year who. Struck out 31 guys in 39 innings, 3 ERA, 1.16 WHIP. He's with the Rays, which is a big, giant, hello, come draft me, because the Rays are probably one of the best organizations in terms of talent evaluation. Just look at what they did with the Rosarena, look what they did with everybody that they acquire. They bring in these guys, and they just find ways to make them relevant. So give me Rich Hill. Yes, I know it's Rich Hill, but you know what? The Rays know better than we do, so let's stop making jokes, because the Rays get it done every year.
Yeah, no, you really can't argue with what you're going to get from the Rays. So I completely agree with that. Man, I hate everybody who I'm looking at right now.
Oh, it is not a deep draft this year.
This is terrible when you get to this point. So I'm trying to look at my roster instead of looking at Joe's roster and watching my clock go down. I still have either an outfield spot open or whatever. I still need a relief pitcher, but there are no relief pitchers that I want. It is getting late in the game for me to choose who I'm going to draft, and it's going to be ugly. So we're just going to draft Austin Hayes just for the upside that I see. And then we are looking at, let's see, you know what, I may go with, let's see. I know you're suggesting, hold on as we get there.
I know what you're trying to tell me.
I know what you're doing right now. They're suggesting Hector Neris. I mean, is Neris going to close? How much is he going to get? But frankly, I'm looking at everybody right now, and it's pretty disgusting. So I am just going to draft Hector Harris at this point to fill their.
All of a sudden, those back-to-back closers I took don't look so bad anymore.
Yes, I didn't mean to criticize, but you're right. You do get to this point, and I mean, how many situations are there that we feel comfortable about where you know who's going to be the closer for the team? I mean, it's probably what
not only
14?
have job security, but also have good secondary numbers. Like that combination. There's a finite number of those guys, and I think you got to take them. Now, this next pick, you're going to be mad about, and probably Andrew will too, because you guys let him last way too long. He's got a 400 on base. He's going to hit at the top of the Mets order, I think. And it's Brandon Nimmo. Oh, baby.
He was the one who I was thinking about taking at this
do
point.
it.
The worst. I know.
Brandon Nimmo. First guy on the bench, by the way. I've taken a bench player now before a catcher, just so we're all clear here. How I'm rolling.
It was a decent pick. I liked it. I was thinking about him as well. So I like that pick. Go ahead, Andrew. What do you got?
Yeah, I was looking at Nimmo my last time. So
well, you can look at him in my roster for the rest of the year.
I'm looking at those. I'm looking at those relievers, and it's ugly out there.
It is ugly,
isn't it?
I am going to You know what? I'm just gonna take a guy I like on skills basis, rather than a guy with a secure job, and I'm gonna take Amir Garrett, who, if you see him arguing with Lucas Sims on Twitter, he seems to think he's the closer. So let's see how it goes.
He's got a great arm.
He certainly thinks. I actually think he probably will be, or at least he'll get the majority of the saves. Is my guess.
If he doesn't, I think he could give a lot of strikeouts at good ratios at least.
Well, and Sims is dealing with injury right now. So if he gets the early lead on that job and takes it and never looks back, that's possible too.
There's also Doolittle, so they signed. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
And looking at a starter for my bench, a pitcher, I'm gonna go with a guy I liked the past couple of years, and he finally showed something last year. That's Eliseo Hernandez. I think it's an interesting upside arm for my bench. We'll see.
And again, you can't go wrong at this point. Like, I mean, I'm basically being like, I don't even like this guy, but I'm going to draft you because we're in the 80th round at this point. All right, Joe, what do you got? What are you thinking about?
All right, well, I got to look at the queue here and see where I would say weakness maybe of the team, or where I want to bolster up a little bit. I think that's kind of the next thing to figure out. And the guy I wanted actually just went in this round, so Candelario's gone. I was looking forward to him, but now I can't have nice things. So I think instead I'm going to go for another bounce back guy and go with Hunter Dozier, who, again, boring but good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let... or did he go too? Because it's showing him in my queue, but now I can't draft him.
No, he actually went. Yeah, he went.
This is terrible. So all that stuff I just said is now.
I did that to mess with you a little bit. It's funny because I was thinking about taking him as well.
Well, this is not good because now I've got 5 seconds left and it's gonna take somebody I don't
screw it up. Don't screw it up.
All
Joe.
right, let's just take Garrett Hampson. How's that?
That's right.
He qualifies everywhere, and we'll just throw him around the diamond. Here, super utility guy. How's that? I'm so mad. I'm mad.
Yeah.
Damn you, draft wizard.
That's fine. You can be as mad as you want. So I am going to take a guy who has not really done very much now for 2 years, but who, when healthy, was kind of a very low-key guy who you could rely on and stick in your outfield, and that's Mitch Haniger, which I get my patented reach alert, which is fine because we're in the 23rd round. But again, if Mitch Haniger is healthy, we've seen what he could do, and that is produce. And at this point, my rotation is pretty, good, but I'm going to take a guy who, again, people feel very comfortable. Draft Wizard feels comfortable. Will be available to me on my next pick, but, Dan Harris don't care. And that's Mitch Keller, who's a guy who I think is the author of probably the unluckiest and luckiest season that you could possibly have when you compare his last few years. But I rely on the stuff. His minor league stuff was good. I think, given the fact, again, I know it's a bad team, but facing NL Central teams are going to be a winning formula, generally speaking, for pitchers. And because they really have nobody else, he is not in any danger of losing that job, so he's going to stay out there. So I will take Keller, and Joe, you are up.
Goodness, not a fan of everything that's left here.
Well, we are in the 24th round, and you have 3 bench spots, and of course a catcher.
Yeah, I'm going to take another pitcher. I'm going to take Kim, just as a guy who might float around. Again, give me, at this point, when I'm looking at names, I'm looking for quality innings instead of, quantity innings. I think that's the best way to put it, basically. So there's just not a lot out there, and this is why if you don't address pitching early, you can't make it up like other years. There's a weird divide between the young guys who are coming up who haven't established themselves yet. Sometimes you get this every couple of years. You get a transition year, and this is one of the worst ones because you're adding in the COVID season on top of it.
Right. Yeah, this is the time where this is why, I like Mitch Keller. I'd like to have a share of him this year, but in no way can I go into a season saying I'm going to start this guy. This is a guy who you draft to see what happens. That's where we are a lot at this point. All right, 4 picks left. Round 24, pick 12. Andy, you're up.
Right, I'm going to take someone with 3 positions of eligibility, at least according to the Wizard. And
the Wizard.
That's all that matters. The Wizard.
Nobody beats the Wiz.
I wasn't buying the power outburst in 2019, but last year he was still really good. The contact skills are legit. I'm taking Tommy La Stella. I think the Giants are going to find a way to play him.
Yep,
I agree.
Yep. I like it. Yeah. All right, you're up for another one. Go for it.
And I am looking at the pitchers available. It is not that great.
They're all really good, right? They're all really good. Good pitchers.
I'm gonna take another 2020 Mulligan pick. He had a 3.51 ERA at 30 starts in 2019. But we're all discounting him now because he was banned in 4 starts last year and still doesn't have a team. I'm hoping Jake Odorizzi signs with someone interesting.
He will. Maybe
the Mets.
Maybe.
Yes.
I mean, God knows they need another starter.
It's a little surprising that the Mets haven't signed him. I'm just going to put that out there, but whatever. It's not really my it's not the GM. I'm the GM of this fantasy team, and I'm reaching all over the place according to Draft Wizard, so I'm fine with it. All right, go ahead, Joe. You are at round 25. You got 3 picks left.
Well, my wizard is frozen for a second. Now, okay, he's back.
No.
My my wizard for a moment was a little,
It's fine.
It was without me.
Nobody beats him.
No, nobody beats him.
him.
Nobody. I'm
Nobody.
going to go with closers on bad teams. So I think that's going to be my new theme here. So let's go with Jose Leclerc because I think he's going to have that job. So
come on, Joe.
And now it allows me more flexibility in this league potentially to trade because there's going to be people desperate for saves, and I've already got 2 guys. Oh wait, no, I've got 3.
Well, yeah, it's true. People will be desperate for saves. If somehow there will be 45 closers available this year due to the natural turnover.
The natural turnover is
that is
45.
one of the reasons why I don't stress it. As long as you don't bury yourself
Right.
early in guys. So we're at reach time now. You just go get your guys. I'm gonna get a guy who, I don't know, I kind of expect to be up the whole year. It's certainly not a guarantee, but at this point, upside is fine to go with. And I'm going to go with Andrew Vaughn, who I think has a bat that plays in the major leagues for sure if he does get the opportunity, and it sounds like he's going to. And because I've gone here with somebody from the White Sox, I'm going to go with another guy. Now, I do not expect him to start the year in the rotation, given what we have seen for the last 2 years, and he had some off-the-field stuff. Just where, he wasn't sort of ready to pitch last year and he didn't want to when he opted out. But Michael Kopech is a guy who still retains an incredible amount of upside. If he does get if he somehow starts the year in the rotation, I love it, obviously. I'm not expecting that, but I am expecting him to get called up relatively early for the White Sox, who are going for it. I mean, they have championship ambitions. So I'm going to draft him now. If it doesn't work out, I can move on, but I'd rather have him now on the team rather than sort of frantically searching for him on the waiver wire when he does become available. All right. Joe, next to last pick. What do you got?
This is let's see. This is our last pick. Is that what you're saying?
Second to last pick.
Second. Okay, you scared me because I didn't have
a
catcher.
Plenty of time.
Oh no, I got plenty of time to take a catcher.
Hmm.
I'm gonna take some upside too. I'm gonna roll the dice with a young pitcher in Oakland, like I did last night. His name is AJ Puck, and see what we get out of him in 2021. So I think that once again, Kopech was on that list of guys too, where you just take him and you hope and you wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and again, by the way, in points leagues, especially, he's this year is not the year for starting pitchers who qualify as relief pitchers in most leagues. There just aren't that many of them.
Right.
Puck is a guy with a lot of upside who, if you want to draft late in that format especially, but certainly there's plenty of upside. All right, last 2 picks. Drew, finish us off.
All right, I'm going to take another reliever for the back end of my roster. I don't know if he's the closer, but I think he could be a top 15, top 20 guy if he was, and that's Giovanni Gallegos.
Mm-hmm.
Just dart throw. We'll see how that goes. And my last pick, it's frozen. Okay, here it goes.
This draft wizard's working overtime. I don't think it's used to 3 people.
Well, you know what? It's
entire
mad
time.
You yelled at it a lot. That's why.
I love it. It's my baby. I love it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, how the mighty have fallen. Former MVP still on the board. Joey Votto showed some nice power at the end of last year. He made a change in approach. I don't know if that will actually stick or not, but this is my last pick, so if it works out, cool. If not, I drop him.
There are no bad 27th round picks. That's the rule of fantasy baseball. All right, Joe, you were up for your last.
Well, I guess I got to take a catcher. I guess it's come down to this. I got to figure it out.
You don't have to, I guess.
I mean, I do. I mean, I want to do it. I mean, there's everything in my being that wants to take Kurt Suzuki. So just for fun, let's do it. I mean, look, it's Carson Kelly, it's Wilson Ramos, it's Alfaro, it's all these guys. But you know what? I'm just going to take some batting average. That's what I'm going to do, because that's another thing that's kind of hard to find. So of all the guys left, everybody's hitting 240 except for that guy. So give me the guy who's going to hit 275, 280, and I'll live with that.
Well, I think what I can confidently say is that batting average doesn't matter, and if you're taking it into account when you're drafting right now, you're crazy, because it doesn't matter whatsoever.
It matters because he's starting for me. That's why it matters.
I get it. Yeah, all right. So I will, whatever, man. I mean, I guess I'll go with a reliever. And at this point, look, they're recommending Seth Lugo. Obviously, he's got the injury, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, but it's just loose bodies in the elbow. Hamels had that clean up one year and came into his one of his best seasons ever after that. So.
Either way, he's not the closer. So I'm not, unless Edwin Diaz reverts. So I'm going to take another guy who's probably not the closer. But we talked about hand. And again, I wouldn't be surprised to see hand used early. So I'm going to take Tanner Rainey here at this point just to Go ahead.
I almost
You want to talk
took him
favorably about it? I'm happy to do it. All right, so guys, did you get a draft grade?
I did.
For your team. Okay, so Andrew, did you get one as well?
I'm loading it now.
Joe, why don't you start off with your
it just
draft
popped
grade?
up automatically. And I gotta say, I used the Draft
automatic.
Wizard a bunch last week getting prepared for labor, and it was super helpful because it really gave you, you can revert stuff back out and just say, okay, I didn't like that, the way that worked 3 rounds later. Let me go back to this place I screwed up and figure it out from there. And that is incredibly useful. I got a B, 83 out of 100. I think this is, I think a lot of this grade comes from the fact that Benintendi was bad last year, that Lorenzo Cain didn't play last year, and that's fair.
Well, why don't you read your roster off, by the way?
Sure. Well, let's start with the most important piece, the catcher. Kurt Suzuki.
The only thing that matters.
The only thing that matters to me is Kurt Suzuki. First base, Paul Goldschmidt, pretty good player still. Ozzy Albies at second base, I think a very high RPV guy in terms of relative position value. He's going to steal bases, going to hit for power. Marcus Semien at shortstop, who I like as a bounce back against Toronto, also a down year. Austin Riley at third base. Corner spot right now, Trey Mancini. Paul DeYoung is the middle infielder. Then the outfield is Christian Yelich, Eloy Jimenez, Victor Robles, Andrew Benintendi, Lorenzo Cain, Nelson Cruz at utility. Starting pitchers here, we've got Yu Darvish, Corbin Burns. Then Zach Greinke, Charlie Morton, Sivali, Singer, and Kim. The RPs are Karinchak, Kirby Yates. Then the bench is Brandon Nimmo, Garrett Hampson, Jose Leclerc, and Rich Hill, and AJ Puck. So overall, I would go to war with this team 100%.
I think it's a good team. I mean, you do have a lot of sort of, some guys are older, some guys are bounce back, right?
I got a mix of young and old. Everyone's going to hang out together. Everyone's going to get along. It's going to be really nice. The old guys are going to help the young guys. It's going to be beautiful.
All right, solid team. Andrew, did you get a draft grade?
Yeah, I think it's broken. It gave me an A+. So
yeah, you're number one. Look at you.
I'm gonna change all of this. I have to talk to our dev guys. Be like, all right, guys, read off your team. Go ahead.
Okay, so catcher, I cheated and went Isaiah Kenner Falefa. First base, Anthony Rizzo. Second base, I cheated again, Glaber Torres. Short, Xander Bogaerts. Third, Justin Turner. Corner, CJ Crone. Outfield, Acuna, JD Martinez, Tommy Pham, Jorge Soler, and another slugger, Kyle Schwarber, with Alex Kirilloff in utility. My pitching is, I got Max Scherzer, Blake Snell, Ryan Plesley, Rafael Montero, Zach Wheeler, Joe Musgrove, Tyler Mahle, Jose Urquidy, and Amir Garrett. And my bench has Giovanni Gallegos, Eleusier Hernandez, Joey Votto, Tommy La Stella, and Jake Odorizzi. So,
all right. So A+ aside, mister, how do you feel about this team? How do you, because Joe got whatever he got, like a D.
I got a
whatever
B.
He got.
B as in boy, not
an
D.
F+, F+ for Joe. And he feels fine about his team, though. And I agree. I think Joe's fine. So obviously the draft grade is what it is. But how do you feel about this team?
I mean, I feel reasonably good about it. I wasn't expecting A+, maybe more like an A-, B+ squad. I think,
Good.
there's a good bit of balance. I like how I got speed at the top with Anderson, Acuna, Pham, but then got the really high upside power guys in Soler and Schwarber later, and Martinez.
Hey, if you get JD Martinez and Soler in that team to play up to snuff, and Tommy Pham is healthy enough, and that all works out, that's a good team. Like having Max Scherzer, as long as he is Max Scherzer too. It's a lot of the, as long as the guys do what they're supposed to do, kind of a squad. JD, Scherzer, those guys.
Pitching is always risky, but Scherzer, Snell aren't exactly bank aces at this point, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, if you're looking at our on youtube.com/FantasyPros you can see the draft board right now, or you can see sort of the categories and how we look based on Draft Wizard, and you can see Andrew is projected to finish first. I'm fourth. Joe's eighth. But if you look at pitching, Joe has the second best pitching staff overall. Andrew has the fourth, and I have the fifth. Now, I got an A- and a 90, which I'll take, considering how many times he told me I was reaching, which is fine. My team is Mitch Garver, Cody Bellinger, Kevin Biggio, Trevor Story, Eugenio Suarez, Mike Moustakas, Jorge Polanco, Nick Castellanos, Joey Gallo, Kyle Lewis, Andrew McCutchen, Mitch Haniger, and Miguel Sano. And my offense on the bench is Austin Hayes and Andrew Vaughn. And my pitching staff is Clayton Kershaw, Jack Flaherty, Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez, Frankie Montas, Marcus Strowman, Ryan Yarbrough. My relievers are Raisel Iglesias, and we don't have to talk about anybody who could be my second reliever, but it's Hector Neris and or Tanner Rainey, and I also have Mitch Keller and Michael Kopech for the bench. So, look, it's, by the end of it, I was sort of like, and I haven't done too many mock drafts that have this, which are the standard sort of thing that we have, which are the lengthy, the deeper categories, the regular sort of thing. I haven't done many of it, and you learn lessons just by doing this, which is like, Joe, as you mentioned, the pitching by the end basically is horrible. The outfielders by the end, as you mentioned, right? In a 5 outfielder league, like, this is going to sort of, as I go through it, even though I've done rankings, like, when I do my rankings, I'll probably start pushing outfielders up a little bit to the extent I do it. And when I do drafts, I will probably start.
And if it's a 3 outfielder league, then you don't have to make such wicked adjustments. But I think in the 5 active outfield, you do, because there are a lot of unknowns there in the back end of outfield in that last tier. Guys like Nimmo, I like. There's some other guys you could take shots on. But when you look at this roster, I think it's a very good roster. I think the 1 or 2 things you're concerned with is obviously saves, but the other one is batting average. Because I think when you're looking at even your better players on this roster, it's the guys like Moustakas, guys who are going to be more in that 250 range, 240 range. So that to me, and I don't know if Andrew agrees with this either, but that to me is one of the other hard things to find. Like, you can find some stolen bases late. We all did it here in this draft.
Definitely.
But batting average is one of those 3. If you let it get away from you, it can really you almost have, I don't want to say punt on it, but you really got to understand that it's going to be a challenge potentially this year, also because of where baseball is and the style of play and how things have really changed.
Absolutely.
I generally, it's a great point. And I'm looking now, you can break it down by category, by the way. And I am, surprise, surprise, projected to be last in batting average.
I didn't even look at that. I didn't even look at the time.
But it's true.
Know.
Look, when you have Joey Gallo and Miguel Sano as big parts of your team, absolutely. But I did make that conscious choice. There were 2 things. Number one, I think what I like to do early on is address speed and batting average to the extent I can, because there is power late for sure. But if there is a category that you can afford to go out of the draft, I feel like being weak on, it actually is batting average in terms of projections, not because it's easy to address. Correct, Joe. I agree with that. You can't find, unless you want, Arias, that year he came up, you're like, okay, great, here's a guy who's just going to hit singles all day, whatever. But I think because it's most prone to, differentiation each year, like Joey Gallo, right, was a guy with 200, and then 1 year, right, he bumps up and he'll hit 250. So I think it at least gives you the out there. But the other mistake I made in this draft is that early on I felt fine with speed because a couple of my early picks, Trevor Story, Cody Bellinger is going to chip in, Kevin Biggio, and I looked light on power. So I went so heavy on power that I wound up being projected to lead the league in home runs by a wide margin, by the way. One person is close because I went with such power. And then in steals, I'm projected to be 9th. So that's that's a mistake I made. And look, I like to make excuses for myself because it's my show. I can do what I want, which is I'm sort of hosting and sort of into it. But that's something, don't get too caught up with sort of how things look, early on and be like, oh, I've got to correct. Like, just go through it. But I feel like, what's great about the Draft Wizard is, again, this one took an hour or whatever we did because it was the 3 of us, but you can bomb through these in 10 minutes and you can practice your different strategies and realize sort of where things get thin.
And you can record yourself talking about it so you feel like you're doing your own show.
It's going to be amazing. Again, I love it. Yes, my daughter, my 10-year-old, started a podcast, so I'm going to have her record doing a draft at this too. She'll feel amazing. Okay, anyway, that's it. This was a longer show than usual, guys, because I wanted to get through, but I think it was really valuable. I enjoyed it. Joe, we know you because you're here and you do the Black Book and you're amazing. Andrew, you're also amazing, but remind everybody where they can find more of you.
Well, you can find more of me here on Fantasy Pros, obviously, but you can also check out the Fantasy Black Book on Amazon right now. Get yourself ready for the fantasy baseball season. You get it a paperback. You can also get it on the Kindle as well if you want to save a tree, which is very nice. And, of course, you can check me out on Twitter at JoePisapia17. There you go.
So this is my favorite part, and you can hear Andrew laughing. And I think the reason he was laughing is because I said, I know where I can find you. You work here now. You're fine. And you do the Fantasy Black Book. Andrew, where can we find you? And then you start talking about where we could find you, Joe. So I get it.
I'm sorry. I thought you said to me,
fine.
too.
He was on a roll.
Fine.
I don't want to stop him.
Fine. I appreciate it, Andrew, but you can find Joe at all those places. Also here, talking to me.
You can also find
day.
Andrew, at Fantasy Pros and at the Black Book, and also at JoePisapia17. You can check him out there. He won't answer you because he'll be like, "That's not my Twitter handle," but he'll try.
Andrew, Gould, where can we actually find you?
Well, you can find me at Fantasy Pros, and I also write on Pitcher List, and you can find me on Twitter at AndrewGould4. So But you can't find me Joe Pisapia or on the Black
No.
Book, so
You know, might
But
find
both
you in the
those
Black
things-
Book next year. I'm always looking for
Yeah.
good people, let me tell you.
Both those
I'm a big
things are
fan,
fun
you know?
to check out. Anyway, all right, this is a great time. So we're going to be back with another show. Joe and I are actually going to record it tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit about his labor draft. We'll talk about some reaches, some other things, and we'll talk about some other high-value players. Until then, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/FantasyPros MLB. And until then, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Looking for useful content, fantasy-relevant information, and the data that can help your team win? Make sure to subscribe to our Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. And while you're at it, don't forget to follow us over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @FantasyPros so you get all the information you need to dominate your leagues all season long.